In 2011, the tsunami in Japan claimed nearly 20,000 lives. Entire cities vanished before our eyes in minutes. Cars floated like toys, houses crumbled like cardboard boxes. And after this tragedy, the Japanese government made an unprecedented decision, one without parallel in history, to build a gigantic concrete wall along the entire coast. When the wall was completed, the government couldn't hide its pride. It seemed this concrete monster would forever protect residents from tsunamis. But then why did the 2024 tsunami call this entire concept into question? Why do scientists call the wall a trap that kills faster than it protects? And why have some Japanese cities abandoned this wall? And were they right about something? Well, let's reconstruct the tragedy of 2011. We'll travel to the northeastern coast of Japan, to the island of Honshu, to the city of Shindai, a major regional center with a population of about 1 million. March 9, 2011 is an ordinary spring day. People are going to work, children to school, tourists are strolling the streets. At 11:45 a.m., the earth trembles slightly beneath their feet. The tremors are weak because the epicenter is far out in the ocean. Japanese meteorologists record a magnitude 7 earthquake and issue a tsunami warning. But a few hours later, the warning is lifted. It's important to note that most tsunamis are caused by earthquakes beneath the ocean floor. When huge tectonic plates shift sharply, they push billions of tons of water upward. This water disperses in all directions at the speed of an airplane. That day, a small storm hits the coast. For the residents of Japan, this is nothing unusual. They've seen it hundreds of times. Japan is the most seismically active country in the world. More than 1,500 significant earthquakes are recorded each year. This is especially true because Japan has extensive protection along its coast. In the open sea, at the entrance to the bays, underwater breakwaters were installed to hold back large waves. Along the coast, concrete structures designed to protect against waves up to 8 meters high were erected. March 10th arrived. The tremors continued. Several earthquakes measuring between 5 and 6 points were recorded in the past 24 hours. Seismologists reassured the population. It was stated that the activity was dying down and there was no danger. March 11th, 2:46 p.m. Imagine you live in the city of Rikuzentakata, a small, quiet town on the ocean shore. Only 23,000 residents. You're sitting at work. Suddenly, your desk begins to shake under your hands, then more violently, then so hard that you fall out of your chair. That's the day the magnitude 9 earthquake begins. The strongest earthquake in the country's history. Residents of the town begin to hear sirens, but many are in no hurry to evacuate. Statistics show that only 56% saw shelter, while many others went out to observe the situation. Some even went to the ocean to film what was happening. And then people saw something they had never seen before. The ocean began to recede. Right before their eyes, the seabed, rocks, and seaweed that had never been visible above the water were exposed. Suddenly, the horizon darkened, and people saw a dark mass of water, the height of a 5-story building, slowly and inexorably engulfing everything in its path. The first wave washed over the coastal neighborhoods. Minutes later, the streets turned into a seething torrent of debris. Cars floated and were carried away like plastic cups. Wooden houses were torn from their foundations entirely, some with people on their roofs. Concrete buildings held, but the water simply rose above the windows of the first floor, then the second. The scale of the tragedy was mind-boggling. Of the 23,000 residents of Rikuzentakata, 1,100 died. 80% of homes were destroyed. Streets that were teeming with people in the morning turned into empty leafy fields by evening. Over 500 kilometers of northeastern Japan's coastline looked like the aftermath of a nuclear war. Entire neighborhoods were washed into the ocean. Thousands of cars were scattered across fields, and in some villages, only the foundations of houses remained. Nearly 20,000 people were killed or missing. More than 400,000 buildings were destroyed. While cities disappeared underwater, all of Japan looked to one spot, the Fukushima nuclear power plant. A 14-meter high wave crashed over the 5.7-meter protective wall and flooded the backup generators. Without power, the cooling system stopped, causing 3 reactors to melt down. 164,000 people were evacuated overnight. The exclusion zone still exists. The plant itself is being dismantled piece by piece and will not be completed until 2050. Interesting fact. Everyone was surprised by the small village of Fudai, which was almost untouched despite the fact that it should have suffered the same fate as its neighboring shattered villages. The wave, which had swept away concrete walls, like matchboxes, stopped before this village. Fudai was protected by a wall, but unlike many other villages, this defense withstood the impact. Everyone began to wonder why this wall had held when all the others had proved useless. For starters, the initiator of this wall was a man named Katokwamura, who had spent 40 years battling the village council, landowners, and even his own residents who called him a madman and a wasteful tyrant. Andalo. He was the mayor of Fudai and had spent decades promoting the idea, seeking funding, and refusing to lower the height of the structures, despite criticism from residents and officials. In the end, he got his way, and the gate and dike were about 15 meters high. In other places, walls 5 to 10 meters high were built. This structure blocked the valley and river mouths through which a tsunami could penetrate the village and was designed to withstand rare extreme tsunamis. Omura died in 1997, 14 years before his wall saved 3,000 lives. He never knew he was right. After the 2011 disaster, the Japanese government faced the most difficult question in its history. It seemed impossible to defend against such a force of nature. Then Japan announced the construction of a protective wall along the entire 400 kilometers long northeast coast. That's the equivalent of 4,000 football fields lined up lengthwise. Imagine building a wall the height of a 4-story building along that distance now. Construction began in 2012 and lasted almost 10 years. 30,000 engineers, workers, and specialists worked simultaneously at hundreds of sites along the coast. Each site was unique, with varying seabed depths, varying topography, and a history of previous waves. The foundations extended 25 meters deeper than many skyscrapers. The base of the wall was made wide and trapezoidal to prevent a wave from toppling it in a single impact. At the base, tetrapads were laid, concrete structures with a bizarre 4-legged shape that break the wave structure and cause it to slow down. In port cities, engineers tackled a special challenge. The wall couldn't be solid. Fishermen needed access to the sea. Therefore, special gates and locks were installed. During normal times, they are open, allowing people to walk to the sea and boats to set out. When an alarm is sounded, the gates close automatically in minutes. In some cities, new hills were literally piled up from millions of tons of soil, raising the level of entire city blocks 10 meters above their previous level. 9 million trees known as green walls were planted along the entire Bisum line to weaken the wave. By 2022, the long-awaited wall was completed. Japan spent 10 years and $12 billion. The largest construction project in the country's history was completed. It seemed like a relief, but then criticism began. It turned out that all the wall did was slow the wave and give people a few extra minutes to escape. It could not completely protect residents from a tsunami, and many Japanese wondered, was it worth the expense if the only way to survive a large tsunami is still to run as fast and as high as possible? Local residents complained that they felt like they were in a prison. Outside their windows, not the sea but a concrete monster the height of a 4-story building. Although people used to see the beautiful ocean and sunsets over the water from the same place. The second problem became tourism. For example, the coastline of the city of Sanriku was a world-class beauty. Fjord-cut cliffs, clear water, beautiful beaches. Now a gray concrete strip runs along it all. Tourists have stopped visiting. The third problem is environmental. Construction has destroyed shallow coastal habitats, precisely where fish don't spawn and algae grow. Scientists have found that the impact of the wall construction on the marine ecosystem was greater than the tsunami itself. But the most dangerous problem with the wall isn't the concrete or the money. It's what's going on in people's minds. Scientists have documented a paradox. It turns out that in areas with high walls, people are less likely to evacuate. They see a concrete monolith outside their windows and think it will protect them. Some Japanese towns have even abandoned plans to build a wall. For example, the village of Mane in Miyagi Prefecture. In 2011, a tsunami destroyed 42 of 55 houses. After the tragedy, residents gathered and decided to move, as many didn't believe the wall could truly protect them. In 2024, the wall's strength was tested for the first time. Imagine January 1st. The Japanese are sitting around the holiday table, children playing with presents. New Year's programs are playing on television. That evening, the Noto Peninsula on Japan's west coast suddenly shook. It turned out to be a magnitude 7 earthquake. It was the first serious tsunami in Japan since 2011. This was the first real test, the new defense system. Not a lab simulation or a computer model, but a rampashara of Ares. To the surprise of many, the results were mixed. Where the protective structures were in place, the damage was minimal. The wave hit the concrete, lost energy, and slowed. The houses behind the walls remained intact, but any wall has weak points, and water always finds them. First is river mouths. Engineers couldn't build a wall across the river without changing its flow. Therefore, the tsunami entered the river channels and traveled deeper into the city. Second, there were the port entrances. Ships had to pass through, so there was always an opening in the wall. Such areas should be closed with special gates, but due to their high cost, they weren't installed everywhere. On the one hand, the wall had already proven its worth. During typhoons and small tsunamis, it held back waves, saving homes and lives. 400 kilometers of concrete is the largest infrastructure project in Japanese history. But the wall's true test hasn't yet come. The 2011 earthquake had a magnitude of tau. Events of this magnitude occur once every few hundred years. Nothing comparable has happened since then, so only time will tell whether the wall will hold.